Good afternoon, everybody. I'd like to call this meeting to order. Special Board of Commissioners meeting Wednesday, November 13th, 2024. Everybody please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. So it looks like today's meeting has to do totally with the micro hospital. So I'm going to get a chance to go through this, but all right. First is Commissioner Doherty to place the meeting in Sendai.
I make a motion to place the meeting in Sendai.
Second.
We have a motion, a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Nays? Ayes have it. Okay, for A, public hearing on the ordinance number 1040, amending the zoning code to define a community hospital, permit it as a conditional use in the LI district, and establishes that setbacks for community hospitals in the LI district. And I will turn it over to the solicitor, Mr. Madarin.
Thank you, Mr. President. So we're here today to begin with on the hearing on ordinance 1040 to amend the zoning code as described by the President. We'll have a couple board exhibits, one being the ordinance itself, ordinance 1040, and the second being the proof of publication, which ran in the Daily Times in accordance with the municipality planning code. Luca Greco is counsel for the applicant. He's promised me brevity, so we'll see if he lives up to it.
Does the board mind if I stay seated, or do you want me to stay up?
Do you think you need this, or?
It all depends. You're recording it on this?
Make sure the audience can hear you.
Here, Luke. Yeah. Sorry, we don't usually have the meetings here, so we've got to pass that back.
So just procedurally, commissioners, what we're going to do is Lou's going to present whatever he wants to present on the ordinance, and we'll incorporate that into the conditional use hearing so you don't have to hear things twice. So when we get to that part, we'll just get that into the transcript.
Yes, as I said, Luke Greco here on behalf of the petitioner, who will be applicant in the minute. We're the ones that advanced the ordinance amendment. The board has it in front of it. It's been properly introduced. Any questions about the ordinance amendment will probably be answered during the testimony in the conditional use hearing. As Mike said, we're just going to collapse the record together. We don't have any testimony per se on the text amendment. You've all seen it. Your planning commission recommended it. Delaware County Planning Commission recommended enactment that meets all of the procedural requirements of the Aston Township zoning ordinance for amendment of the ordinance. And essentially, it's to allow for a community hospital use in the industrial district with a modification of some parking requirements or setback requirements. So I don't really have anything more to say than that on the text amendment. We could just roll right in now, if you'd like into the conditional use hearing.
Why don't we, I'd like to take a break, get the ordinance adopted before we do the conditional use hearing, and see if our public has any comments.
No, good.
Yep. So Mr. Chairman, hearing no comment from the public on the ordinance, you can take the meeting out of signed die and consider the ordinance.
Are you going to come back? You're going to come back into B?
Yeah, we'll do the,
Okay.
we'll get the ordinance in place before we do a public hearing.
Okay. Mr. Doherty, would you take the
Okay,
meeting
I
out
make a
of
motion
Sunday?
to take the meeting out of Sendai.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Nays? Ayes have it.
Now you need a motion on the ordinance. And as described by Mr. Colagracco, this is an ordinance that defines a community hospital, permits for a community hospital use in the LI district by conditional use, and establishes parking requirements and front yard setback requirements specific to community hospitals.
Okay, so we're going to come to old business A, consideration of an ordinance number 1040, amending the zoning code to define a community hospital, and that's Mr. Burry.
Thank you, President Higgins. Aston Township, Delaware County, Pennsylvania, ordinance number 1040. An ordinance of Aston Township, Delaware County, Pennsylvania, amending its code of ordinances. Part 12 entitled Planning and Zoning Code. Part 6 entitled Zoning to define and establish regulations for a community hospital. Use and allow it by conditional use in the limited industrial zoning district. Whereas the first-class Township Code of Pennsylvania empowers and authorizes the Township, Aston Township Board of Commissioners to enact legislation to amend its zoning ordinance, and whereas the Aston Township Board of Commissioners believes enacting legislation to specifically define and regulate a community hospital use is necessary to help preserve the health, safety, and general welfare of Township residents. Now therefore it be enacted, ordained by the Aston Township Board of Commissioners that Part 12 Planning and Zoning Code and Title 6 Zoning of the Aston Township Code of Ordinance is amended as follows.
I think we gave a description of the amendment, so I think you've got sufficient.
And that's in the form of a motion.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor? Any comments or questions? Oh, so we have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Nays? Ayes have it.
Now let's go back into Sendai.
Yep.
And we'll do the conditional use.
So Don, you want to put us in Sendai?
I make a motion yet again to place the meeting in Sendai.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Nays? Ayes have it. Okay. So now we have a public hearing on the application of Christiana Care Pennsylvania, Inc. to develop a community hospital at 700 Turner Industrial Way. Mr. Solicitor.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. President. So this is the application for the conditional use for the community hospital. Now that we have the ordinance in place that permits this use by conditional use in the LI district, we need to go through the step of actually having a conditional use hearing and establishing conditions should the commission so choose. So I see applicant's going to include its application as an exhibit. So as the board exhibit, we'll use the advertisement of the hearing again, and then I'll turn it over to Mr. Colagricco.
Thank you. Lou Colagricco, again representing the applicant. Pauline, I'm going to give you the microphone. I'm going to talk loudly. I won't waste time by going through things we already know about, so I'm going to try and be brief with the presentation of testimony here and ask that my first witness be sworn.
Can you please raise your right hand and state your first and last name?
Pauline Corso.
Do you swear that the evidence you're about to give is the truth and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Pauline, the township has just passed an ordinance amendment allowing for a community hospital in the LI district. You're familiar with that whole process?
Yes.
And you've been with this project from the inception.
Correct.
You've attended Township Planning Commission meetings, you've attended the Development Committee meeting, New Development, you've attended the, we heard about the Delaware County Planning Commission meeting, correct?
Correct.
All right. Are you authorized to appear and testify on behalf of Christiana Care before this board?
Yes, I am.
And what is your title?
Regional Executive Director.
The board in its packet has Exhibit A4, which is an aerial of the map. Can you identify the location of the property?
Yes. The location of the property is mentioned. It is on 700 Industrial Road. The property currently has a two-story office building, which we plan to demolish. And the goal is to build a Christiana Care neighborhood hospital, referenced as a micro hospital on the first floor. And the second floor will have Christiana Care Health Center, which includes primary specialty and imaging services.
And just for clarification, that's the intersection of Dutton Mill Road and Turner Industrial Road, right?
Correct.
Now, you use the word micro hospital. The ordinance just passed defines it as a community hospital. Is there, in your mind, one and the same thing?
Correct.
And the proposed use of the property as a community hospital does meet the definition set forth in the zoning text amendment, correct?
Correct.
You have a partner in this process, too, as well. Can you elaborate a bit?
Yes. Christiana Care partnered. We have a joint venture partnership with Amaris, Amaris is and has expertise in neighborhood micro-hospitals throughout the country for almost 20 years, and they currently operate with other health systems 42 neighborhood hospitals. So we chose to partner with them because of their expertise so that we can accelerate advancement of this project.
Good. And describe some of the services that will and won't be offered by the community hospital.
Community hospital is again a micro hospital, which means we will have 24/7 emergency departments services, but that is for in 10 emergency department rooms. We will offer 10 inpatient observation rooms, but the hospital is really focused on community-based care. We will not have delivery rooms or operating rooms, and this is not an intensive care setting, so it really is meant for community, lower acuity care on the inpatient side. But the emergency department is full service and is capable of caring for any emergency.
The board has in its exhibit package a rendered site plan prepared by Bowler Engineering dated September 25, 2024. I'm going to hold off on asking any questions about that until we actually get to that here. But I am going to ask you about Exhibit A6, which is really 3 plan renderings. I'm going to give you my package. Would it be safe to say, if I were to summarize what these exhibits are meant to represent, that they are first cut, second cut architectural renderings of what the buildings may look like, or what the community hospital may look like? There are 3 plans marked as Exhibit A61, A61, A62, overall elevation, north elevation, and south elevation.
Yes, that's correct.
Would the HVAC equipment for the building be located on the roof of the building?
Yes,
Okay, and it is going to be screened, correct?
correct.
Why did Christiana Care choose this location?
So we've had a commitment to southeastern PA. We currently have primary care practices as well as our Concord location on Route 202. And we always saw southeastern PA as our neighbors. And in the recent years with some of the hospital closures, we recognized it was important for us to take a closer look at the market need. And through that market assessment, we identified Aston as an ideal location for this neighborhood community hospital model, which we believe will have significant positive impact on the community.
Now, there are certain standards in the township zoning ordinance that we have to address when we're seeking conditional use approval. I'm going to ask you to address some of them, and then I'll ask our civil engineer to address the others. There's 5 I'm going to ask you to speak to. In your opinion, would granting conditional use approval for the hospital use interfere with or detract from the legitimate use of adjacent properties, or would it in any way be incompatible with the character of the surrounding neighborhood?
No, I believe it would have the opposite effect and be a positive for the surrounding community.
Does the proposed community hospital use promote orderly development, proper population density, and the provision of adequate community facilities and services?
I believe it does.
Would a community hospital use serve the best interest of Aston Township, the convenience of the community, and the public safety, health, and welfare of Aston Township?
Yes, it will, in particular given the hospital closures and the impact on emergency department waiting and just access to care in general.
And you're aware of the discussion that occurred before both the Township and the County Planning Commission regarding the proposed use. Did each of those planning bodies recommend that this board approve this development?
Yes, they do.
I don't have any further questions.
From the board?
I do. Normally, the conditional use would be the first phase of the land development, but it's not in this case, and which is fine. But I just wanted to mention a couple things. How many how many of these micro-hospitals do you and your partner have in the southeast Pennsylvania area right now?
So we currently do not have any open.
Right.
Right now, we will open our first one at Westgrove in Chester County in summer of 2025.
Right.
And then the goal will be Aston, if all is approved, as our second one. And then we have an additional Delaware County site that we like to open another one.
Right.
So we'll have 3 total in southeastern PA. Ideally, the goal is by the end of 2026.
Okay. When do you expect to have demolition start?
I don't know the answer.
Roughly, you don't have to be exact.
That's right. Matt Pierce, the civil engineer, you probably should be sworn.
Can you raise your right hand and state your first and last name for the record, please?
Matthew Pierce?
Do you swear that the evidence you're about to give is the truth and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
So we're looking to begin demolition in Q1 2025 or early Q2.
Okay. One other thing that I wanted to bring up, and it has to do with access to the building, access from the bus and so forth. I know we discussed this, but I want to make sure that it's clear. So in front of as part of the construction, the sidewalk that will run in front of the hospital, okay, that will be handled as part of the new construction because it doesn't have any interference with PennDOT regulations or anything like that, right? That's clear?
So what sidewalk is that you're referring to from the?
The one that will run in front of the hospital up to the intersection, okay? Just along Turner Industrial Way.
So I believe the last meeting we had, we discussed about relocating the bus.
Well, no, not that, that's another one.
Okay.
This one is in front of the hospital, as you look at the hospital running lateral.
Along Turner Way or?
Along Turner Way.
Adjacent to the building.
Adjacent to the building, yeah.
Adjacent to the building, yes.
Yeah, so it want to make sure it's clear that as part of construction, at some point during construction, you guys know when that should be done, because you don't want to break up something you just put down. That is clear that will be done as part of the new construction, right?
Correct, perimeter sidewalk around the building.
Yes, right. So now, the other thing is something that the board recommended was that if we could get SEPTA to modify the bus stop on both sides of the street, bring it down, what's the direction on that, Joe?
Guess that would be on Matt's plan east.
Plan east, yeah.
So I know you don't want to hold up any construction waiting for PennDOT to do what they do. So if the bus stop can be moved up, then the sidewalk that would take you down to the sidewalk that stopped, the one along Dutton Mill, that one will be done afterwards so that you don't hold up anything during construction waiting for PennDOT. So I want to make sure that was a proposal made by the board. I think it's a good one. So somebody getting off the bus coming in from Pennell Road would be able to get off and not have to cross any streets, that type of thing. And they could walk right down the sidewalk to the building. So that will be after construction. Okay, so everybody's on line with that one?
Correct, and we have an exhibit in the package, maybe we take a quick look at so we're all aligned on the expectation. And we already have talked to SEPTA.
Oh,
They're
good.
in agreement with relocating it, and after construction takes place, they will relocate it. There's some stipulations, we'll have to install a level pad, 8x5 pad, and then they'll come in and move the sign. So I've talked to them already about that.
Okay.
And just so we're clear, I think that's exhibit 10, Matt?
Let me take a look at that exhibit.
That's what I'm looking at.
Yes, exhibit 10.
Exhibit 10 shows that.
So exhibit 10 in the package shows the 8x5 landing for SEPTA, and then the sidewalk, following Dutton Mill, making a slight turn down Turner Industrial Way, and then cutting across the parking lot. We're not proposing sidewalk along Turner Industrial Way.
Okay, thank you. That's all I have, but Joe or John, you guys spoke a lot about that. Do you have any questions that you want to direct here?
No, I'm glad they've already resolved the SEPTA issue. That's great to
Now,
hear.
that's really great. Great. How about you, Joe? Do you have anything you wanted to say on that?
No.
Okay. All right. Any,
I have a few other, just a couple more.
yeah, go ahead.
You usurped half of my questions.
My father wanted me to be an attorney.
We got them all out of the way.
He stays up all night thinking of them.
Okay, so Matt, you've already established the fact that you're a civil engineer. You're the civil engineer for this project, right?
That's correct.
You're familiar with the ordinances of the township.
I am.
And you've been behind this project for what, the past 12 months, 10 months?
Yeah, around that.
Design. You've appeared before the planning commission.
I have.
All right. So you're familiar with all the dialogue and all the questions that have just previously been asked of you. So I'm going to go right to the heart of it and just address the conditional use requirements that we have to address. You're familiar with the standards of the ordinance. In your opinion, does the application meet those standards?
It does.
There's no variance relief that's necessary in order to build this community hospital as proposed.
That's correct. The adoption of the text amendment, we are compliant.
Is the proposed use appropriate for the site in terms of size, topography, natural resources, and the accessibility of public services and utilities?
It is, yes. We're following, mimicking a very similar atmosphere of this existing property, but giving it an uplift and bringing up a much needed and essential need to the community.
And you're familiar with the multi-municipality comprehensive plan?
I am.
And is this use consistent with a comprehensive plan?
It is.
That's the multi-township comprehensive plan. And in your opinion, is the proposed use suitable in terms of highway safety and traffic circulation?
It is. The use actually creates less peak hour trips than the office use that's there today.
And this zoning ordinance amendment that was just passed had different parking criteria for this use. Without going into it, does the plan, as proposed, meet the parking criteria of the ordinance?
It does.
I don't have any further questions.
Anybody else from the board or the audience? Are you have any questions, sir?
I think I'd asked at the last meeting about blood work. Are you going to be doing blood? This is basically going to be an emergency care facility, correct?
Correct. So if the patient goes into the emergency department, we obviously do it all. Up in the health center, which is outpatient, we currently do not plan on having a lab. So we will not offer phlebotomy, but we will have imaging, CT, ultrasound, X-ray.
And you wouldn't have like a dialysis section?
No.
Nothing like that?
No.
Okay, so I guess no more questions that
You
we,
want to move your exhibits into evidence?
Thank you. I move the exhibit package into evidence.
okay. So, Mr. Doherty, could you take the meeting out of Sendai?
I make a motion to take the meeting out of Sendai.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any comments or questions? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Nays? Ayes have it. So we'll move into new business. So we're moving into B, I guess, yeah. All right, Mr. Doherty. Go ahead.
So we have a consideration of resolution 2024-120 granting a conditional use approval to Christiana Care Pennsylvania Incorporated for a community hospital use at 700 Turner Industrial Way. It's a long resolution. Mr. Madger, could you provide a quick summary?
Yeah, I've prepared a resolution granting conditional use to the applicant. The applicant's attorney has had the opportunity to review this resolution. So I'm going to read the conditions of the resolution for your record, and then you can take action accordingly. Applicant shall construct and operate the proposed use in accordance consistent with all applicable laws and regulations of the United States of America, the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, as well as all applicable ordinances of the County of Delaware and Aston Township. Applicant shall construct and operate the proposed use consistent with all applicable building codes and ADA accessibility requirements. Applicant shall construct and operate the proposed use consistent with the evidence presented today, which is incorporated into this decision as though fully set forth. Prior to making application for building permits for its proposed construction at the site, applicant will make all necessary applications for the installation of sidewalk, along the length of the northern portion of the property where it borders Dutton Mill Road. Applicant shall provide the township with all applications and correspondence to the necessary regulatory agencies when made, and shall construct the sidewalk promptly when it receives all necessary approvals. The design of the sidewalk shall be subject to the approval of the township engineer. Prior to making application for building permits for its proposed construction at the site, applicant will make all necessary applications to relocate the bus stop presently located along Dutton Mill Road west of Turner Way to an area adjacent to the property along Dutton Mill Road east of Turner Way. And I hope I got those directions right. Applicant shall provide the township with all applications and correspondence to the necessary regulatory agencies when made, and shall relocate the bus stop promptly when it receives all necessary approvals and the approvals contemplated by condition 4 above. Concurrent with construction of the sidewalk contemplated by condition 4 above, applicant will construct sidewalk from the sidewalk along Dutton Mill Road into the parking lot of the property, and will apply pedestrian markings through the parking lot, both of design and location, subject to the approval of the township engineer. Prior to recordation, applicant shall revise its land development plan to set forth the conditions of this resolution verbatim. The terms and conditions of this approval may only be modified by subsequent conditional use approval in accordance with the then applicable provisions of the Aston Township Code. And those are the conditions. Mr. Colagreco, those conditions acceptable to the applicant?
Okay, Mr. Madron, thank you. I make a motion to approve this resolution with all the conditions as described by the solicitor.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any comments or questions from the board? Seeing that, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Nays? Ayes have it. Okay. So next we have item C is consideration of the resolution number 2024-121 approving the preliminary final land development application of Christiana Care Pennsylvania Inc. for 700 Turner Industrial Way. And Mr. McGinn, please.
Thanks, Commissioner Higgins. With this being kind of a similarly lengthy resolution, I'm going to allow our solicitor, Mike Madron, to summarize it.
Thank you. So I've prepared a resolution for you granting land development approval for this project at 700 Turner Industrial Way. This resolution grants 4 waivers, 3 from Saldo and 1 from the stormwater ordinance. Those waivers are as follows: the waiver to file separate preliminary and final plan submissions, a waiver to not provide profiles of the existing streets adjacent to the property, a waiver to not provide sidewalk and curbing along the property. Note that the requirements for sidewalk are set forth in your conditional use decision. So this waiver is so that they don't have to do the entire length of both Turner and Dutton Mill. And finally, a waiver from the 50-foot riparian buffer requirement. It also grants the land use subject to the following conditions. Applicant shall abide by all laws and regulations of the United States, Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, Delaware County, and Aston Township during the construction and use of the property. Except as otherwise approved during final land development, applicant shall construct and install all proposed improvements consistent with and as shown on the plan. Prior to plan recording, applicant shall revise the plan to set forth the waivers and the conditions of this resolution verbatim. Applicant shall at all times comply with the conditions of the conditional use decision in this resolution. Prior to plan recording, applicant shall revise the plan to include the sidewalks required by the conditional use decision to the satisfaction of the township engineer. Prior to plan recording, applicant shall enter into land development, improvement, security, and stormwater operation and management agreements with the township in form satisfactory to the township solicitor, and shall make a contribution to the municipal stormwater control and BMP operation and maintenance fund in an amount to be determined by the township engineer. Prior to plan recording, applicant shall pay a fee in lieu of the provision of recreational lands and facilities in an amount to be determined by the township engineer. Prior to plan recording, applicant shall provide a truck turning template in compliance with comment 21 in the November 11, 2024 Pannoni review letter, and shall revise the plan to comply with any comment generated by the township engineer's review of that template. Applicant shall materially comply with the terms and recommendations of the reviews, those being the Pannoni review, the new construction review, the Planning Commission review, and the Delaware County Planning Department review. Prior to the issuance of permits for any construction activity at the property, applicant will provide will-serve letters for water and sewer service. And finally, applicant will comply with all recommendations of the fire marshal relating to the plan. And I did provide a copy of this draft resolution to applicant's counsel beforehand, and those conditions acceptable.
There's only one modification I would request, and I don't think it changes much of anything, but it's letter G, the fee in lieu of the correct space. And it's acceptable. I would prefer perhaps that read prior to plan recording, applicant would pay a fee in lieu of the provision of recreational lands and facilities in an amount agreed to by both the applicant and the township. Because we don't, right now, it's just an open-ended commitment, which we'll never be able to get approved internally. I mean, we're going to have to come to some agreement over the next couple of weeks as to what that, maybe it's not even a couple of weeks.
So in other words, a sit-down maybe?
Yeah, just a sit-down
Yes,
session.
I just, I'm fine with that language. I do want to note that we have a formula in our ordinance on how you calculate this, although I guess the only variable in that formula is the fair market value of an acre of land in Aston Township. So I guess that would be the only point for negotiation, is what's the fair market value of an acre of this property.
We'll come up with a, I mean, we will come up with a number. There's no disputing that, but we just wanted to make sure that we had that the decision allowed for dialogue about that. And we sit down at the table and come up with what that number might be.
Yeah,
You
I
good?
mean, listen, it has to be done prior to plan recording,
Yeah.
and if it's not done, it's gonna delay the project, so
Yeah.
I think there's motivation to get that done.
Kelly, can you make sure that gets noted, the comments here? that-
I'm gonna revise the
Okay.
resolution and add the exhibits for Kelly tomorrow, so I'll make sure that Lou and I agree on that language before I send it over to Kelly tomorrow.
Yeah, the fact that we didn't have a court report, I just want to make sure it got captured, you know. Okay.
So otherwise, I think, you know.
The board okay with that?
For a motion.
Kevin, you okay? Yeah. All right. Okay, Mr. Begin, continue.
Thank you. So I'd like to make a motion approving the preliminary final land development application for Christiana Care, Pennsylvania, Inc. for 700 Turner Industrial Highway, noting that letter G will be slightly revised based on the conversation today.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further comments or questions by board? Okay, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Nays? Ayes have it. Congratulations. Yeah, we look forward to seeing you here in the town, so. Next time I trip, I'll be running down, so, yeah. Thank you very much. We do have open to the public for 1/2 hour, with the one public member here, please. Tell us if you'd like to speak.
Did this go in front of the zoning board?
Did you ask if it went to the zoning hearing board? Did you ask if it went to the zoning hearing board?
Yes, that's what he asked.
No, it did not. It does, so a new ordinance goes to planning. The zoning board interprets existing ordinances. Why are you looking at me like I've done something wrong? That's the way the municipality's planning code works. So new ordinances do not go to the zoning hearing.
Are you okay with his response?
No. I don't understand why it didn't go before the zoning board.
Because that's not the procedure in Pennsylvania. So an ordinance can be initiated, an amendment to a zoning code can be initiated in two ways. One by an application that comes before the board, the other by the planning commission. The planning commission's job is to review, well, among the planning commission's jobs is to review amendments to the zoning code. The zoning hearing board doesn't create legislation and doesn't comment on new legislation. It interprets existing legislation. So once the legislation's in place, then it becomes the purview of the zoning hearing board. But until it's in place, it does not.
If it helps, can you give an example of Aston in the past? Was there the most recent one? I'm thinking, off the top of my head, I'm thinking across the street from that. Was Iceworks? Did that go in front of zoning?
I don't think there was.
I'm just
anything-
asking apples to apples, like.
Yeah, I don't think there was anything in the Iceworks application either that needed zoning approval or amendment.
Yeah, so what zoning does is if someone either wants to appeal a decision of the zoning officer or request a variance from the legislation that exists, that goes before the zoning hearing board. But when it's the creation of a new ordinance, that does not go before zoning hearing.
Here's an example. So
Can I just a little bit further? It would be like Congress passing legislation and then sitting as judge and jury when someone's interpreting that legislation. So really, your separation of powers almost require that the zoning hearing board not get this until it's enacted.
And all I was going to say is tonight they amended the ordinance to allow for the setbacks to be 70 feet. If they came back tomorrow and said we need to move the building to 50 feet, that's the zoning hearing board.
I think likewise, if there's a parcel of land, and let's say I'm making this up, it's limited industrial, and let's say that it's going to be changed to build homes, okay? The Board of Commissioners can grant changing that to R1, R2, or R3, okay? That's moving it from one type of district to the other. The board would do that, zoning would not come into that. But if we were going to make some changes to setbacks, like Joe said, then you would hand it over to the zoning hearing board. Okay, and this is all covered by the state regulations, so, okay? All right, so any other questions, Mr. Hart? Okay. Seeing none, we'll move on to other business. Mr. Tinsley?
Nothing.
Okay. Mr. Berry?
Nothing.
Okay,
I'm good.
Okay, Ms. Bowden? Mr. Begin? Okay. Administrators? No. Professionals? Okay. I have nothing to add, and I just wish everybody a good happy Thanksgiving and so forth.
See you next
So
week,
we
Joe.
appreciate you coming today. Appreciate that from the audience. And so I need a motion for adjournment.
So moved.
So moved. Okay, all in favor?
All right.
All right. Thank you, everybody.